Welcome to At the Market, a look ahead at Chicago area real estate. Brought to you by At Properties, the #1 brokerage firm in the region. Welcome to At the Market and our 2021 outlook. As the train pulls out of the station, it seems like volatility could be a theme that crops up throughout the year. To help us understand conditions on the ground, we're going to be talking to At Properties co-founders Mike Golden and Thad Wong, as well as Dan Moran of mortgage lender Proper Rate. But first, we're going to hear from two industry experts, Tom McCloud of Zenlist and John DAmbrosio of At Properties Relocation, to provide insights into how the pandemic has shaped or created certain housing conditions. Let's get into it. One of the biggest stories in the real estate market this spring is inventory, or more specifically, a lack thereof. Homes for sale are at an all-time low. Yet there's always that real estate agent that seems to have the inside track on a home that's for sale, but not actively listed yet. Here to tell you how you can get an inside track on those homes too is Tom McCloud, founder and CEO of Zenlist. Tom, welcome to At the Market.
Thanks, Peter. I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you. Well, first of all, just tell us about what the pre-market is. How does it work? How many homes are listed at any given time?
So the pre-market, it's an interesting set of inventory. For whatever reason, the property isn't ready to go to the active market. But at any given time, our pre-market inventory hovers around 10% of total inventory in the market. And in some sub-markets like the North Shore or Hinsdale or parts of the city, the pre-market can actually represent anywhere from 20 to 30+% of total listings available. So if you're a real home buyer and not seeing this inventory, you're not getting a complete picture of the market. So
Sure.
it's meaningful.
So we're talking about potentially hundreds or thousands of homes?
Oh yeah, so today on Zenlist, we have all the active inventory from the MLS that you'll see on every other site. But we've got an additional about 2,000 listings that are pre-market.
Okay, well, so let's get into Zenlist. What is it and how does it work?
Yeah, Zenlist is kind of the new thing for home buyers. Agents invite their home buyer clients onto Zenlist and grant them access to a richer marketplace of listings. So as I mentioned, not only do they see all the active inventory from the MLS, but they see thousands of pre-market listings that they otherwise wouldn't see. So we really cater to the collaboration between agents and the real home buyer. And we just have a richer marketplace for them to draw listings from.
So home buyers typically are using maybe a few different websites and apps to do their search. They're maybe on Zillow, they're on Trulia, maybe realtor.com, maybe they're using a broker website too. How is Zenlist different?
Yeah, aside from the pre-market inventory, we think it's really important that consumers collaborate with their agent and maybe even their co-buyers on the same platform. So the sites that you mentioned, Zillow, realtor.com, those sites really cater to the DIY home buyer, but eventually that DIY home buyer needs to go offline, right? They need to go tour homes and those kinds of things. And when they do that, those sites really cater to driving leads to real estate agents. So those platforms are really intended to convert you from a browser to a lead. And we're not interested in that consumer experience at all.
Absolutely. Well, Zenlist is currently available through your At Properties agent. It's also available through other brokerages too. The collaboration throughout the local industry is really important. It's important to At Properties. It's important for Zenlist. And so talk to your At Properties agent, get invited to Zenlist, and good luck in your home search. And Tom, thanks so much for joining us. We will see you soon.
Thank you, Peter.
We all know that a lot of people moved in 2020, and even more people are planning on picking up this year. But where are they moving to? To help us answer that question, we're talking to John DAmbrosio, Executive Vice President of Relocation and Referral Services with App Properties and our affiliated companies, Ansley Real Estate and Nest Realty. John, you're primarily focused on two markets, two major corporate relo markets, Chicago and Atlanta. But from a national perspective, what are some of the emerging hotspots that you're seeing? In other words, where are people moving to?
So from a national perspective, what we see, I call it kind of the New South, say Charlotte, Raleigh, Nashville, Atlanta, and then the New West, not quite the West Coast, but maybe like a Denver or an Austin or a Houston, obviously has just been booming over the last 10 years. I'll say from Chicago, we have this unique relationship, perhaps weather related, that a lot of our referrals, probably a significant minority of them, are going to Florida or they're going to Arizona.
And Chicago, I mean, there's been a lot of headlines about people moving out of Chicago, but Chicago is still a pretty hot destination for companies moving in, wouldn't you say?
It certainly is. And we had a banner year, and I'm sure the relocation industry in Metro Chicago had a growing year. So we've got no concerns about Chicago not being a hub of the financial world as well as industrial and consulting. So we see it being very strong. And Chicago is a big market.
Well, our friends at Redfin recently published a survey that said nearly 1/3 of homeowners want to move if they can work remotely after the pandemic. But a very small percentage of those respondents, less than 5%, said they wanted to move more than 50 miles from their current home. So John, help us make sense of this.
Well, what I think is interesting, Peter, the question was actually if you could work from home permanently. And I don't think we're going to be able to work from home permanently, but I think that it is permanently integrated into the way companies are doing business. I'm seeing a lot more companies do a flex work week where you have a number of people that work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday people. So everyone's in the office on Wednesday, and that's when you have your meetings, and that's when you have vendors come in and out. But you kind of have that flexibility. And if you're 50 miles away and you only need to come into the office 1 day a week, 2 days a week, that is conceivably doable as opposed to sitting in the traffic 5 days a week.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, if you or somebody you know is moving to a different market, please contact your App Properties agent. They will work with John and his team to find you another agent in a market that will make sure you get the service you deserve. Well, mortgage interest rates have been falling and falling and falling. And here to help us make sense of it all is Dan Moran, Executive Vice President of Sales for Proper Rate. Dan, welcome to At the Market.
Peter, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
You bet. Well, maybe just give us a general overview of the mortgage market at the start of 2021. What's happening?
Sure. I mean, just as you said, falling. I love that intro piece because rates really have been doing that, right? We're seeing historic lows. We didn't know where the end was going to stop, and we've kind of hit that soft spot, if you will, of just a tad under 3%, where we're ranging between 2.625 to 2.875 on 30-year fixed range for conventional conforming loans. Great spot to be in from a mortgage rate perspective. Certainly the impact for borrowers, both consumers who are purchasing homes as well as people who are refinancing their properties. Cash is good in terms of being cheap and certainly putting money into their pocket in that perspective. We look at 2021 as a whole and think that mortgage rates are still going to remain relatively low.
I know last year we dealt with some capacity issues, approvals as a result of situations that buyers encountered because of the pandemic. So what do you think is out there for borrowers in 2021 that could possibly be considered a challenge?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I mean, I think there still are challenges out there as it relates to capacity. In the rate environment we are in, there's still kind of full pots, if you will, in terms of overall mortgage volume, right? So I think from a consumer's perspective, I'd certainly encourage those people who are getting their mortgage financing to ask the questions from an expectation standpoint, understand how long the loan process should take. We've seen cycles where you can get the loan approval done in anywhere between 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And I think in current environment, we're typically seeing, especially the purchase closings, taking 30 days minimum, right? And a lot of that comes to, again, as you described, Peter, capacity. Some of those areas of capacity that we can't control, appraisal certainly is a big piece, right? So people still need typically appraisals for the homes, and that still is something that people should be prepared for from an expectation of delays.
Dan, thanks for joining us. Bottom line, if you are looking to purchase a home or refinance a home in 2021, go to properrate.com, talk to a proper rate loan officer, do it early so you get a head start, and you'll find some very attractive rates out there in 2021. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
In the open, we talked about volatility. And based on the conversation with Dan, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot when it comes down to mortgage rates. But what about sales activity and home prices? To answer those questions, we will bring in At Properties co-founders and co-CEOs, Mike Golden and Thad Wong. Spring Market 2021, welcome in, guys. How are you?
Good to be here,
Great.
Peter.
Great to be here, Peter.
Good to see you as always. So on a volatility scale, what do things look like heading into the spring market?
Volatility has definitely been an interesting word, particularly over the last year. Obviously, the markets were incredibly volatile in many ways last year as we went into COVID and things shut down and then exploded back up as we opened back up. The spring market's starting out solidly great this year. So we feel really good about it. If you want to talk about what could be volatile in the marketplace, obviously inventory is a big discussion. Inventory right now in the suburbs is down much lower than it's been in probably a decade. Inventory in the city is doing just fine. It's not like through the roof, but there's no inventory issues whatsoever. And then you can talk about pricing, where we're seeing the same thing. You are seeing some upward pressure on pricing in the suburban markets in particular, and in some of the higher end luxury markets, which particularly in the suburbs, we haven't seen in years. So you could call it volatile. I would actually call it more of normalization from where we've been over the years, because the suburbs have been oversupplied for years, and we're finally back down to maybe slightly lower levels than we'd like, but we do feel like those will come back. And we're starting to see some price increases that once you blend them out over the last 5-10 years, they're normal at best.
Yeah, it's funny that we're talking about volatility, following what recently happened in the stock market, with GameStop and AMC. And Thad, I know that you love to draw comparisons to the stock market. So, maybe you could do that for real estate here. I mean,
Well, I think it's interesting because everyone is seeing, all-time highs almost every week when it comes to the stock market. And I think there is some belief, and there are some bears that are out there that have already pulled their money out and exited. And I do think that with interest rates as low as they are, and the big piece that I think people are looking at in states like New York, New Jersey, California, Chicago, is if the SALT taxes are repealed. Because if that happens, you'll see an immediate increase in valuation. So I do see a volatile market right now, but I see it very buyer heavy, and I only see it becoming more buyer heavy as we go into the year. We're going to have an incredibly robust spring market. People are going to be very busy. The word of the year is going to be access. Everyone wants access because there's low inventory to listings pre-MLS, to pocket listings, to properties that they would have otherwise not been aware of. So I think people are going to be galvanized with their agents heavily over the next 6 months, and we're going to see an incredibly robust market. And I do think Chicago is very stable, and we don't see a tremendous amount of appreciation in our homes like you do on the coast. I do think that the Midwest, Chicago, will see strong appreciation this year, and especially in the North Shore, western suburbs, and also in the city single-family home market. And then I believe this summer will be a reemergence back for luxury apartments, luxury condos in the Gold Coast and River North. There will be a focus this summer.
Thad, you mentioned strong price growth, and we have seen prices, I guess, shoot up in terms of, for Chicago, shoot up. Prices were up about 9% across the metro last year. So do you see us getting into any issues with affordability?
I don't at all. Our city and our suburbs have been incredibly affordable for decades. We're so inexpensive to live in comparison to most cities in California, New York, New Jersey, even Dallas and Houston. So because our housing stock is so affordable, I think we have lots of room to grow. So I'm not afraid. And I do think that this year will mimic last year when it comes to appreciation. I also think that our city will be heavily improved from a pricing component if we have the salt tax removed. If that salt cap is removed, you're going to see significantly more buying power for buyers, and that'll yield to higher pricing.
So Thad, you think there could be another 9% this year on top of the 9% we had last year?
In some categories of housing in some areas, absolutely, and it'll exceed that. In others, it'll be lower, maybe 4, 5, 6. But I think we'll see positive pricing appreciation across the board.
So 9% was a big jump for us last year, and I agree with that. I think we're still going to see some good price appreciation. Some markets will continue to explode, certain very, very specific submarkets, but generally across the board, we do believe that we'll continue to have appreciation. But even 4 or 5%, if you look back historically over the last 5 to 10 years, we've had very, very little appreciation in the marketplace. So part of it's just catching up to where we really should be based on time, inflation, and everything else in the world.
So inventory is really low in the suburbs, but not so much in high density urban markets. We've been talking for months about when the city is going to come back. So do you think 2021 is the year where we will see a leveling off in terms of, maybe the suburbs are getting a little cooler and the city is getting a little hotter?
I think one thing we all have to remember is, last year there was a lot of talk about flight out of the city. And, obviously there was a ton of activity in the suburbs. But if you look at the volume in the marketplace, the city volume was basically flat from 2019 to 2020. We didn't have some kind of big flight out retraction. You had more people buying in the suburbs, which made the suburbs feel super hot, but the suburbs have been depressed for a decade. So all we saw was some catch up. I think you saw people who were sitting on the sidelines. A lot of millennials were buying who maybe had waited to buy to lock in. So you're seeing a lot of those buys happening in the city. And then you're just seeing a lot of movement from city to suburbs from people who were planning on making those moves anyway, and they just accelerated their time frame.
Well, big takeaway for 2021. What do you have for us, Thad?
Big takeaway for 2021, relief. I think people are going to feel relieved going away from the pandemic. I think psychologically, emotionally, I think families are going to be reunited. I think as long as we can accelerate the distribution of the vaccine, 2021 is going to be the big year of relief, a reintroduction to what we now view as being utopia, which is just normalcy. If we can get some of that back gradually this year, it will be a big year filled with a lot of relief. Yes,
and home is a good place to feel relieved.
Yes.
Mike, what about you?
Yeah, no, I kind of can't agree more. I think, a bit of a return to whatever normalcy was, whatever normalcy will be, will feel a lot better. I just think people are going to feel a lot more confident, a lot more comfortable. It's been a strange, incredibly stressful year for people. Not just dealing with the sickness in the pandemic, but just dealing with not being able to go anywhere, being stuck inside a lot more. It's been hard on people and on families. So I think that people are going to feel a lot more confident, and I think you're going to have a lot more great feelings out there as we accelerate through the year. And I think as the weather changes, that just enhances people's kind of confidence and consumer confidence mood. So I'm feeling very, very good about 2021 accelerating into a great feeling year for everybody.
Well, let's hope that with each one of these episodes, we are a step closer to getting back to normal. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Great insights. Remember to contact your @properties agent if you have any questions about real estate, and we will see you very soon at the market.